Everyone that's out there pushing discounts, they're warming up the customer for everyone, right? If 3 apparel brands are giving out discounts and they're all to the target demographic that we serve, like that demographic is starting to be like, I'm ready to spend money, right? And then when you come in, it's harder, it's a tougher look, right? If you come in without a discount.
An entrepreneur straight out of New York City, Michael Chernow. What's cracking?
What up, y'all? Today's episode of the Kreatures of Habit podcast is part 2 of a God knows how long series we're going to be running here called Kreatures of Habit, What's Really Happening. This is something that Jonathan, my partner at Kreatures, came up with to essentially break through the bullshit of what it's like to be an entrepreneur. What we're trying to do here is be completely transparent and real about our business, about Kreatures of Habit, what's going on in the business, things that we're learning, areas we failed, how tough it is, how awesome it is at the same time, and really just opening up the books for you guys, literally and figuratively, to share the journey with you. You know, we're boots on the ground every day, really focused on trying to create a great brand and a great community. And we believe that being transparent and real and hoping that you guys hear this and listen to this and maybe want to help or just feel proud to be a part of a community that's like honest and real. That's the mission here. And also I think it's just cool content, right? To be able to track a journey of starting a company and seeing some success, and also how hard it is to sustain a successful business, because that's just the truth. It is goddamn hard, super duper hard. Happy Wednesday, JY.
Yeah, thanks. Another fun week.
Another fun week. We the last time we shot was in November, pre-Thanksgiving, first week of November, and we were in a very different place. Actually, we thought that the company was like on the verge of folding. Right, like we didn't have the funding that we thought we were going to have come in, and we got a really unfortunate phone call from some investors, and it was really scary.
Yeah, I don't know if we thought it would fold as much as we were like, we haven't shifted our mindset to think about what we need to do to completely survive, and that's where we were. But we hadn't gotten really to the point of like, okay, what are those steps right now?
Right. Yeah, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. Maybe it wasn't like, oh shit, we're gonna...
It's a podcast.
Yeah, I'm an exaggerator. That's the truth. My wife always calls me out on that. She's always like, no, it wasn't that big. And I'm like, what? But we were definitely a different place, and interestingly, like, we've been in these sort of really tough positions a number of times. And I think the purpose of this series on the Kreatures of Habit podcast is to just like share about that, because it feels really good to share about it. You know, I think a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, business people, you know, you tend to get into business because you like to win, right? Like very few people will start a business or get into business without this like ferocious kind of hunger to win. And winning is really hard in specifically small business. It's very, very hard. The odds are hard against you, you know? And so that's it. But I think the two of us really complement each other in the sense that we both kind of like strangely enjoy the hard part of it.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a good thing, but there's definitely, at least like the way that I end up motivated is like when things get more difficult and there's more problems to solve, there's like a heightened sense of focus and pride in achieving whatever you need to achieve in order to overcome whatever those hurdles are. It's not scalable that way. Like you kind of like both from a personal standpoint, right? Like any individual is not going to like be able to scale that every day of the year, all year. But then from a business standpoint, like you got to set things up that can scale in a way where you mitigate those problems long term. And I think for us, in early November, even though we didn't choose that path, it allowed us to have kind of that paradigm shift of, okay, if we rethink everything right now, what needs to happen? And I would say, like, I don't know that we have fully flushed out what our 2024 looks like, but I would say we're thinking about it very differently than we were 3 months ago. And that's one thing to say, just kind of like broadly speaking, but that creates its own challenges just from when you then turn that into, okay, what does that mean in terms of numbers?
I just want to talk about two things. One, the first one is like you were like, well, I don't know how good that is actually. The truth of the matter is that attribute is the distinguishing element between the ones that win and the ones that throw in the towel. When the going gets tough and it gets really, really hard, if that doesn't inspire you and excite you and motivate you to want to like eat everybody's breakfast,
yeah,
that is why I feel enormous gratitude.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think what you touch on it's interesting, and hopefully when I hear it back, it comes through. But like the first thing you said was about getting in to win, right? People get in it to win. And I think in retrospect, it's always marketed that way. Like you won, like you had the exit or you have the successful business. But like throughout the course of it, it never feels like winning. No. Because there's always something else that you have to get towards. There's always someone else that's doing this that you're not doing. And I have a friend that we've had a conversation about NBA players. And he always comments on how he loves Jimmy Butler because he's not a winner. He's a hate to lose guy, right? And I don't know if it's better to want to win or hate to lose, but in building a business, it's like you can have both, but hating to lose when your back's up against the wall is much more powerful because you can want to win, but you have to do the work to get there. So, it is increasingly frustrating when going through that because there never really seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel if you're never really going to win, quote unquote. But I think something that you and I kind of align on is self-awareness and understanding that a lot of the fun is in the journey of getting to whatever point you get to. I mean, if Creatures wasn't around tomorrow, right, I think that you and I would both say, like, this has been a hell of an experience and a valuable one from a life perspective. It might not mean that, you're on the cover of Forbes, but, that's just one accolade, right? The experience is still valuable.
I think, and this is probably to a fault for me, but the thought of losing, and when I mean losing, I mean like when we started the podcast, I said, man, like, we were thinking about, holy shit, like, is there a chance that we could fold this thing up because of like not having the funds?
Yeah.
And I think you and I had talked about it briefly for like twice throughout the process of us being like, because I had the phone call and I was terrified. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I called you right away, and we spent the next 3 to 5 days like navigating the different scenarios. And there was a couple of times where it was like, okay, well, we're just gonna, we just shut everything off.
Yeah.
And we let the business kind of run its course. And that, like, even saying that out loud to me is like, oh my God, like, is that even? But the truth of the matter is, we're in a different place. We've raised money. And the difference between 3 to 4 weeks, the life of an entrepreneur running a startup, that, we wouldn't have raised money if people didn't believe in the company, right? Like, people, like, our business is a strong business. It's like what we do not only in actual metrics in comparison to a lot of other companies that are trying to be a subscription-focused business with high retention and high conversion rate and high ROAS.
I knew we were going to get an acronym. That was good.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah.
I feel confident saying those things now. And so those things, like, we really do shine in that area. And so, I think the hardest part for companies like ours, especially in times like this, just, economically, climate-wise, is having enough capital to get it to the next to the next phase, which would be like the potential VC/growth phase of development, right?
Yeah.
And getting there is like, that is, you know, I think we used the analogy the last time, like the baby turtles. You know what I mean? Like getting there.
Yeah. The reality is, and I think the reason that this I think is cool, at least like I'm excited about it. Hopefully people that listen to it are excited about it. But like when you talk about how entrepreneurship, like that's what in 4 weeks can happen. When you prepare a deck for investors, right, everyone's expecting up and to the right and it being like linear. And the reality is that if you drill down into most businesses, it's probably peaks and valleys, and one peak is just enormous, right? And that is where like the escape velocity hits. And then no one talks about the peaks and valleys before that peak, right? Because it's like, who cares? This is where we are now. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, but the people who were there during those small peaks and valleys when everything seemed like amazing or this might end, you know, they remember that. So it's very hard to really like, you know, we're obviously super lean, and given the capital that we require for the business and the environment that we've navigated, to have to shift, like when we had the conversation yesterday, you and I were talking and you were asking about like, you know, if we raise X amount of money, what does that look like? And then if we raise X amount of money, what does that look like? And it's a totally logical question. It's so drastically different, right? And so to have to navigate those two things and then also execute on it, it's a wild thing to go through on the day-to-day, because you're basically two different people or two different companies when you're doing those different paths. So I don't know, it's just interesting. It's like you have to have some sort of fortitude. I don't know what it comes from or if you can learn it, that, you know, you recognize the peaks and valleys in the moment and are comfortable with the fact that there's going to be more.
Yeah, I also think like just sort of tagging on that, of course, all investors want to hear positive reporting, right? Like It's just, of course they do. But great investors know that it's not going to always be positive reporting, right? Like investors that you want are going to be there with you in the good and the bad times. And, you know, those investors are hard to find. They just are, you know, and it's not a knock on investors. I mean, I can imagine, like, if your job is to invest and the success, your livelihood is based on lucrative investments, yeah, I can see how, like, you know, not being excited when somebody shares a, you know, a down round or a year over year, month over month decline in sales significant, you know. But the truth is that it is just part of the story. Every single business, you know, has those moments, right? Like, I mean, you hear about them all the time, even the whales, even the big ones. But regardless, we're in a different position than we were the last time we spoke, and we've made some pretty significant shifts though. We've made some really, really hard decisions and have learned now that we've made those decisions, and we should talk about them, that, like, you know, you give a lot of power to potential people, potential agencies that you believe you don't have the potential skill set to perform on your own, right? And I think it's just human condition, right? Like, if you're not really good at something, you either are super prideful and don't ask for help and fail, or you ask for help and you either get the help you're looking for or get the help you're looking for a period of time and then are, like, comfortable with that help and decide to just keep that help on retainer, which is kind of like what we did, right? Like, or let me reframe what I did, right? Like, there was certain areas in the business that I really did not have experience with. And so we brought people on collectively to help us manage those specific departments. And when the rubber hit the road and you and I needed to make some hard decisions in terms of like surviving and making sure that like this thing is going to stay afloat, we cut loose some of those departments and absorbed them. And I mean, it's definitely more work for sure, but I feel like our focus is stronger than ever.
Yeah. Again, it kind of to the comment I made earlier about scalability. We're not trying to do it that way long term.
Sure.
Because there's just only so much headspace that you can dedicate across all these areas where there's opportunity for innovation and improvement and like maximizing the use of really all the tech software that we use. I think that's a huge piece of it. I still don't love when people say like they have a consumer products business and they're a tech company. Like tech is just naturally part of the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the studio.
Sell digitally.
The studio is a recording studio, not a real estate business, you know, just because we're in a building. But yeah, something that I've thought about a lot over, call it like the past 6 months and maybe more, especially with Kreatures specifically, is it's hard to understand when you really want full-time versus agency in your operations and the value that you can derive from that. Like you hire someone full-time, it's a huge commitment. There's additional costs that come with it. And if they're not great, there's a lot of headache to kind of unwind that and then start the search for someone that has the skill set that you're looking for, right? With agencies, there's a little bit more flexibility, but inherently the model is, I'm this new agency, I come in, I am going to impress you, right? And I'm going to impress you in a way that earns the trust. And then once I have established that trust, I can coast a little bit. And most agencies work on retainers, and that's where most of the money is made, right? I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, right? Like, and that's not disparaging any agencies that we've worked with. I think we've worked with some great people. I think it's just natural. Like if you're running a business that, if you shift into that agency seat, right, you're running a business that you're trying to scale, right? You are going to take on more clients that are going to grab at more of your time, and you then have to have that conversation of how many full-time people can I afford? Can they provide the same quality service that I'm promising to client A as I've just promised to, you know,
client B, C, D. Yeah.
And that's why it's like, you know, no hard feelings for us in learning that. And the people that we worked with were, I would say, all great at what they do. It's just natural that it runs its course. And with full-time, like, as we navigate what we're navigating right now, and I don't know if we have spoken about this already, but the value of having full-time people come on next as opposed to different agencies, I think is going to be a game changer for us, where totally. If we can add another individual who, you know, I recently said this to someone, the hardest thing that I've ever seen to recruit for is caring. Like there's no score for it on a test. There's no school you could have gone to that presents it. Like you kind of just have to show it. And you're more likely, I think, to get that from a full-time person than an agency because they're focused in. And
I love that thought. I mean, I think that's, I think if anybody listening to this podcast takes anything away from this, I mean, we haven't finished the episode, but if that is like the thing, right? Like there's no score for caring. And you might not be the best at your job, right? You might not put the greatest numbers on the board. But if someone within the organization that's a superior or the owner or CEO, whatever, appreciates your care barometer, guaranteed without a question of a doubt, you are going to be there longer and taken care of better than the high performer that doesn't give a shit.
Right. Well, you also have to, like, from your role, right, recognize it. You know, there's a lot of leaders of businesses and companies that don't necessarily want to recognize the caring because they do recognize the accolades that the person has, right? And then maybe you still end up successful. It's a different formula that I don't necessarily subscribe to, but it definitely could work. But if you don't recognize that and understand the pulse of your people, you're going to miss it too. So, I think it's super differentiating, and it manifests in a lot of ways, both like within the internal culture of a team and then also with what you go to market with. I think.
Yeah, I also think, like, for me as a business owner for a number of years, and really sort of distilling what I've done well in my role as a leader, it's far more about the culture of the business and I like, when you think about culture as a term, you don't necessarily think about business, right? Like, culture is like what defines a group of people, right? And specifically, like, when I think about culture, I think about like travel, right? You go to like travel somewhere special, Egypt or Southeast Asia or Italy, or you want to immerse yourself in the culture. You want to see what they're eating. You want to eat what they're eating. You want to see what music they're listening to. You want to dance to that music. You want to see how they communicate and see how they bond. You want to be a part of that. Like, it is what really defines a group of people, and the culture of a mass of people is actually one of the strongest representations of legacy, period. Right? Like, It just is. And so for a company, when I think about like legacy and I think about longevity, culture would ultimately be that as well, right? Like, the culture of the company is either going to crash and burn the business eventually, or it's going to keep it afloat for long periods of time, and people are going to want to be a part of it, both internally and externally. And so I feel like culture is such a huge piece. And unfortunately, because there's like this remote world that we live in, it's hard to generate company culture if nobody is in an office.
I have strong opinions on a lot of things. I don't really have a strong opinion on that one. I totally understand it, and I prefer to be in an office. And then there's also advantages of being remote for various people that I also understand.
Yeah.
And I think it becomes a matter of preference, and also what type of person you are in terms of what motivates you and how you like to operate. Like, for example, when I came up to your house, right, and we were working together, it was productive. And I made a comment at one point where, like, in terms of the frequency of being able to do it, I'm much more productive by me, right? Like, I have my screen set up, I'm kind of in the weeds, right? And that's not like good or bad. It's just more of my operating system is like, my productivity is being able to do this, and this very quickly and like digest these problems. And I can't do that if I'm not sitting right here, right? But, that's just, again, when you multiply that by more and more people, it becomes more and more complicated to understand, like, how do you navigate all of that and then also create that feeling that is culture.
Yeah. Yeah, I think today it's especially in businesses that are not necessarily like that can totally function digitally. I think it's hard to. Company culture is definitely taken a turn, and people are getting creative offsites. Like, I feel like the offsite business is like a real thing. People are like hosting these offsites constantly and like generating all sorts of revenue. But anyway, I think where Kreatures is pretty awesome, and it's hard as hell. It's scary, but I think that we're really approaching a bit of a pivot in regards to like how we're thinking about profitability and how we're thinking about the next 12 months. It obviously is very contingent on finishing up this note that we're raising. Anybody listening to this podcast, if we haven't raised it all to date, if you want to invest in Kreatures of Habit, just know that it's a good business. We take your money. But we're in a really cool spot, and it's never not. Like, I wake up excited to lift up the rocks, You know, I really do. I wake up excited to lift up the rocks and excited to connect with the community. I mean, we just got through a pretty awesome Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We saw a lot of activity, ton of activity on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And how did you feel about Black Friday?
I thought it went well. I mean, you know, I don't love sale periods, so.
Johnny Yarms is not a sales guy. He doesn't. He's not a sales guy, and he doesn't like sales. Just sales discounts.
I totally understand them as incentives, but at the end of the day, I think, you know, the people that see the value in the product are gonna be willing to spend on the product and will be committed and loyal customers. So maybe to tie it into peaks and valleys, I don't like artificial peaks, and I think that sometimes that's what discounts and sales do.
But so discounts and sales have been a part of business since business started, right? Like people, you know what I used to say in the world of restaurants is people want the best for free as fast as possible. Humans want the best of the best for free and as fast as possible. And as close as they can get to that, the better they are. That's the truth. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are.
Agreed. And at the end of the day, it's all psychological, right? There's a piece of, you know, marketing. I don't know how much like discounts and sales get kind of pulled into the marketing bucket, but it really is just another component of marketing, and that is all psychological. But I think while that can be true, you can position yourself differently for that. And I don't shop here, so I'm about to reference something that I don't know if it's 100% accurate, so someone can fact check me on it. But I don't know that many people that go to Hermes looking for a discount. And psychologically, that shifts them the other direction, right? They want to pay full price because they want to have that, because they know what it represents and means.
You don't shop at Hermes?
I have, like, half my closet is there.
You sure? You don't shop at Hermes?
But you know what I mean? Like, that is psychological as well, where there's this perception of you're never going to get a deal because it's worth it.
Yeah. It's a different kind of person.
Yeah.
I would guarantee that if Hermes put out a bat signal that said 25% off every single Hermes in the country, the people that pay full price for Hermes would take the opportunity.
Yeah, potentially.
They'd probably want to do it online. They probably want to show up.
So as a customer, yes. But from a business standpoint, right, is that worth it, right? Because now that customer that paid full price knows that you just had a sale. Are they going to come back full price? Or are they going to come back next time that you have a sale?
I think it's a great question. There is a reason. I actually was paying attention to Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals, and I didn't see a single deal. I saw some companies that actually did nothing, but I didn't see a single deal that was not a site-wide discount.
Yeah, of course.
They were all site-wide discounts.
Yeah, and some of it is having to take advantage of the moment. This is something that it's a little bit broader. I think about it in terms of like competition as well. But everyone that's out there pushing discounts, they're warming up the customer for everyone, right? If you know 3 apparel brands are giving out discounts and they're all to the target demographic that we serve, like that demographic is starting to be like, I'm ready to spend money, right? And then when you come in, it's harder. It's a tougher look, right? If you come in without a discount, because they're warmed up to spend, but like they're still kind of conditioned in the moment to get the deal. So you end up, you know, you could avoid it altogether, which it sounds like you said you saw some brands do. I mean, I would think that, especially right now, there's very few that don't participate. But again, it's like you're kind of just, you know, you're a little bit at the whim of this is what people are conditioned for right now. And at other times of the year, you know, that's why when we talked previously, I was like, you know, we did a sale this past year for the 19-year anniversary of your sobriety. And we did for
23% site-wide for Thanksgiving.
23%, yeah, for Thanksgiving. And to me, it's like, that feels right. Like,
I agree.
Giving someone a deal every bank holiday, right, is, you know, at a certain point, they just know there's checkpoints throughout the year.
Yeah, but the cool thing about Creatures, too, is that, like, the subscription for Creatures of Habit is a massive deal.
It
right?
is.
both the 2-box subscription and the 4-box subscription. They obviously get better as you grow, but it's a massive deal. And so I question whether people are subscribing because of the deal initially, or because they really want to try the product. I don't know. It'd be great to find that out.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we can kind of determine that based on the churn, right? But I just think I really do. I think at the end of the day, you know, I had a board call with another business over the weekend, and we were like I was trying to help them think through like a couple of different ways to stimulate customers.
Mm-hmm.
Not only to like participate more in the business, but also like just get up and get in, right? And everybody on the board call, all they were talking about was deal, discount, half off, buy one, get one.
What type of business? Like what
Restaurant.
space?
Okay. So it's just interesting that like when people are thinking about how to motivate customers or in restaurants, guests, you know, how do you motivate people to want to participate?
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind for a lot of people is discount. For us, and we've kind of like really, I think it's something that we're still trying to figure out, but I think for us it's like community, right? Like it would, like we've tried from day one, we've tried to like say, okay, you know, subscribe and become part of this community, right? And because I just know also that like community, big enough community will not only make you feel a sense of fulfillment as a business owner, like when there's like people just like, you know, like when we were at that event down there and we saw people wearing the Kreatures hat and everybody was like stopping and, you know, like, you know, that's like a massive sign of things happening in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, to what you're saying about discounts, one's easy and one's hard.
Very hard.
And one is instant gratification and one is delayed. And 9 times out of 10, maybe even more so now with the way that the overall culture is.
10 out of 10. People want instant.
The easy instant gratification is obviously going to win. And so I think that's where, as a business, right, I think where my belief has been and why I have a lot of faith in your vision for it is that I think it leans a lot more towards doing it the hard way and building the community so that in the long run, you're better off, right? And the more people that aren't doing that, the more differentiating it is for us. And it's funny you say that. I don't know if you've read this about, I think it's Applebee's. Have you seen this? The endless shrimp?
No.
So when you talk about it from a business standpoint, I forget if it's Applebee's or Outback. They did some like $20 endless shrimp deal. And in their earnings, they discussed how they did not forecast demand appropriately for it, and people were coming and not spending on anything else and spending on that, and they took a huge hit as a result of it, right?
Because there were people that just could eat like pounds and pounds and pounds of shrimp.
And that's what they were coming for.
Right.
The
endless.
The hypothesis was probably something like, how do we get people in the door? Oh, endless shrimp, and then they'll come and buy other stuff. And it's like they came and they
Just
took
ate the
advantage
shrimp.
of the discount, and now you're going backwards, right? I believe they increased their price on it, like $5 or something like that, right? But that's a terrible experience now for a consumer to then have to say like, so I could have had this $5 cheaper a week ago, but now I'm going to get it for 25. Mm-hmm. I might not show up, you know?
Yeah, I also want to talk about one other thing that we've had to do at Creatures, which is increase our shipping threshold. And I think that, you know, this is something that is hard for businesses to do. Change in any way that's going to impact the customer is really hard, right? And for a long time, we've talked about like, you know, we've never talked about raising prices. As a matter of fact, the only thing that we've ever really talked about is trying to figure out a way to like decrease pricing. Mm-hmm. But we really took it. We've been taking it on the chin hard with our shipping costs. We absorb an enormous amount of our shipping costs. And we recently have sort of looked at it and said, okay, we cannot continue to run the company this way as we scale because shipping is a massive expense for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided that we were going to increase the threshold for free shipping from $50 to $99. And so what does that do? That basically means that if you subscribe to a 4-box subscription, you not only get the best deal on meal one, but you also don't have to pay for shipping. So what did we say? We said, okay, if you're subscribed to 2 boxes of meal one, it comes to $63. Mm-hmm. Now you're currently not paying for shipping. Once January 1st hits, you will be expected to pay for shipping.
Yeah, $6.99.
$6.99. So you're paying 50 cents more a meal. However, if you go into the membership portal, you can go from a double box subscription to a 4-box subscription and have it shipped to you every other month. Mm-hmm. You're getting the exact same amount of product. You're paying less for it, and you're still evading shipping costs.
Yeah, so in that scenario, you're paying $4.50 a serving plus shipping, and then you can go to $4.25 a serving, no shipping costs.
Right.
Right. So the other proposed alternative was, if someone's a single subscriber, which is 2-box subscriber to meal one, at $63, a single subscription for a nightcap of $36 gets you to $99.
Right.
So there are a bunch of customers that are subscribing to both, and we also outlined plans for them to, if their subscriptions land on separate dates, to merge them so that they can avoid the shipping costs and be at the 99 threshold. So we did something that was uncomfortable for us in increasing the shipping costs, but we tried to do it in a way that...
Well, we didn't increase the shipping costs. The shipping cost is the same. We just increased the threshold.
Yes, I'm sorry. The threshold has increased, so more people are exposed to it. But we wanted to do it in a way where it was like, we're not trying to trap you into shipping costs. We want a path for you to be able to get the same deal that you're getting right now or better. Yeah. And so I think we thought about that strategically. We'll see what the impact is to the business. But shipping's very expensive.
Yeah, the other component to really consider here is, right, like, because we work with a really cool subscription software, the customizability on the membership portal is like amazing, right? Like there's so much that you can do. You can change your flavors, you can add nightcap to your subscription, you can mix and match it, you can change the cadence of delivery. And so for us, like, obviously it makes it's so much better, not only for us, but just like environmentally. Mm-hmm. The less you ship, the less money you spend, and the better off you are, right? So if everybody that was getting a monthly shipment literally went to a bi-monthly shipment, just doubled up the quantity of product, then we're only shipping to you 6 times a year. You're not paying anything, and we're also being friendly to the environment, packaging, the whole thing, right? So it's just, I feel like it's definitely a scary thing to do. I wanted to mention it on the podcast because people that are participating in the brand definitely listen to the podcast and they're probably impacted by this decision. Yeah. And just be straight up about it, right? Like that's ultimately what we're doing, and we know that it's going to actually make their customers' lives better, and also allow us to continue to, plow down the path that we're on. And just be a stronger business for it.
Yeah. I think with everything that we do, we try to operate in the most genuine way, or said differently, we don't want to be disingenuous, right? And so you mentioned like our subscription back-end platform. We've jumped through some hoops there in order to get it to where it needs to be. But our goal, even with that platform, was make it as customizable for people and not have any, like, what is popularized now as dark patterns, like what Amazon has done to kind of lock you into Prime but make it hard to cancel. We're not trying to do any of those types of things in hopes that, when we talk about culture, right, I think those things kind of come through as values of the brand that people might not recognize and say like, oh, that's a culture moment, right? But they feel it when they can go into their member portal and easily make a change at their convenience. right? It's like that's a nice thing for a brand to have presented to you that not everyone is down for.
Yeah, I mean, look, also another decision that we've recently made was to at least for the time being or for the foreseeable future, hop off of Amazon.
Yes.
Right? And there's a number of reasons why. A, Amazon was driving a fair amount of capital on a monthly basis for the company, but we weren't making a dollar on it, right? And as a matter of fact, I think that there was some moments where it was like very close to like losing money working with Amazon. We also have zero ability to connect with the Amazon customers. So if somebody has a bad experience with Meal One or with Nightcap, well, we weren't selling Nightcap on Amazon, but if somebody has a bad experience, it's almost impossible, if not impossible, outside of responding to a bad review, to connect with that person. I connect with, if there is any bad experience that we are made aware of at Kreatures, I'm the person that literally connects with the customer and gives them my phone number to literally have a conversation, so that not only I can try to like smooth out the situation and win back somebody forever and develop a great relationship, but also like get the feedback, right? You know, like I want the feedback.
Yeah.
Feedback is everything. So we decided to say we're not going to do Amazon, and that was a $500,000 a year top line decision that we made. And we believe that maybe we'll get back there, but it's really a culture play for us, right? Like we have zero way to, in this early, we're only 2 years old, little over 2 years old. Like we don't have at this stage being able to communicate with the people that participate outside of the internal team is massive for us. It's massive, or at least it is for me. It's like it's so important that I have the ability to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit on everything with Amazon, honestly, and you kind of said it in passing, but with Nightcap as well, right? It wasn't just that we didn't list it on Amazon; it was we weren't able to because it contained CBD.
Yeah.
So that also created a kind of odd experience where we just went through talking about, if you subscribe, like you can merge your subscriptions, like even something as simple as that. Is no longer possible. Yeah,
and the truth is, like, it took a lot of convincing from you to convince me, because I think the Amazon conversation is like 50-50, right? There are some people that I know that are like, if you're not on Amazon, forget about it. Like, I know a very specific business that absolutely destroys it, just crushes it. I think they're doing $200+ million a year, and a fair percentage of that is on Amazon. And so you talk to the founder there, and he's like, "You're not on Amazon?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, I don't even know what to say to you,"
Yeah.
And then there's other people that we've spoken to that were like, "Yeah, drop Amazon right away. Get off."
Yeah. For some reason, the opinions are pretty strong on it. And I would say out of the gate with Kreatures, my opinion was pretty strong on it as well, and started to shift a little just based on conversations and people's perspectives, but ultimately ended up in the same place where I was like, I haven't seen anything that makes sense to me as to why this channel needs to exist for us. There is a time and place for it, depending on what type of product you sell and also where you're at as a business. Right, we might be having a conversation like this 2 years from now in a very different capital situation, potentially different product situation, not with our existing products, but more in the portfolio where it's super logical to be on Amazon. And then, it's not necessarily a, flip-flop of an opinion. It's just the time and place becomes right now, and it wasn't then.
Yeah, we shall see. We've got some exciting stuff coming down the pipe. New Year's is going to be great. This is our time. New Year's is our time. So I'm excited to continue having these. I feel like I think the audience is going to love these conversations.
Yeah, and maybe if we kind of summarize like what we talked about a bunch of different things, but since the last conversation that we had, right, we've and maybe around that time is when it was happening. So I forget if we mentioned it on the previous conversation we had, but we've gotten off of Amazon, right? We've trimmed down on some of the agencies that we have internally and absorbed a lot of that work. We've executed our Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We've made an update to our shipping policy. And those are all like significant things, I think, that are like, you use the phrase like waking up and turning over all the pebbles. Like, that's essentially what we did with the P&L and went through everything. And I think those are some of the main drivers just in a month's time that we've made decisions on. So
yeah, and I think the impact of that is like, we're talking about being profitable in December, right?
Yeah. I'm hopeful that we'll be profitable in December, and I definitely see the path there in Q1 for sure. So 6 months ago, I don't know that we were having that conversation, but we also weren't having the conversation around like, is the team structure right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm excited for where we're headed. I think if foreshadowing what our next conversation could potentially look like, I think one of the biggest challenges that we're about to face is balancing capital, inventory, and demand, and how to step on all of those things. From a capital standpoint, like, raising money is completely ambiguous, right? Like, some days, someone's going to take down the whole round themselves, and other days, there's literally no one that's deploying anything. And so that's unclear for us. And then going into Q1 is our biggest time of year, which is going to, have its own demand constraints, and we need to make sure that we show up from an inventory standpoint. So that, I think, is going to be, where our conversation
another
is.
thing that we've also done is we've recently transitioned to co-packers. So that's another one. So it's truly never a dull moment, and I honestly don't think I'd want it any other way. Like, the learning curve for me has been pretty severe, and this business is so exciting. It's just exciting and so hard too,
Yeah.
But so exciting because I know, like, even me being just down in Austin and seeing a bunch of CPG entrepreneurs and athletes and just like the community down there, everybody knows and loves the brand.
So I actually wanted to ask you about that.
Everybody knows and loves the brand.
Not just about knowing and loving KOH, but the way that other entrepreneurs speak about their business, if they're enjoying how hard it is, or if it's much more surface level, crushing it.
I spoke to a number of CPG entrepreneurs down there. No one is as willing to just get into the weeds like I am when it comes to the business.
Yeah.
Unless I pry a little bit,
Which feels like prying, so you probably hate.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like but there's not an entrepreneur in the CPG space that I know of that's launched within the last 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I mean, there may be actually I haven't spoken to the founders of some of these kind of unicorn style brands.
Yeah.
But everybody's just they're like, if you're still alive, and you've got money on the balance sheet, you're still in the fight. Yeah. I mean, that's it, right? Like, this is the choice of bringing an idea from a thought that you had walking down the fucking street one day
mm-hmm.
to millions of dollars in revenue 2 years later. It's really hard, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah.
And some of them are going to fly off the handle, and some of them are going to never break $1 million in sales. And you can argue that if you never break $1 million in sales, but the company is highly profitable, and you're bringing you're bringing $600,000 to the bottom line, what's a better business? Are you what is it, right?
It depends who you're asking.
It depends who you're asking. Exactly. So, I just think that the journey is real. I don't think that there's a right or wrong way. I really don't believe that there's a right or wrong way. I think that, every loss is a learning and every win is an opportunity to like high five, hug. Like we had like a pretty, like, for me, 4 weeks ago, I was like, oh my God. And I really, when I got that phone call that was not good news, I was like, holy smokes, like how am I going to learn from this? And then 2 weeks later, I learned from that. I made a decision. I had a conversation, and I turned the ship. And we high-fived and hugged. And that's like, we're in team sports here, man.
Yeah.
It's team sports.
Sure.
It's team sports, I mean, it just is. So I'm excited to continue sharing the journey with the people listening.
Yeah. I hope that people get value from it. And
also, if you guys want to hear about anything specifically, like I'm speaking to the audience, like if you guys want to hear about anything specifically when it comes to business, John and I would love to address questions. So we should probably actually send out a few posts asking the community for questions.
Yeah.
And then answering a few of those questions on these podcasts, because I think that's kind of fun as well.
Yeah, what I'd like to do, actually, we haven't talked about this yet, but I'd like to, at the end of the month, just have an email newsletter for podcasts specifically that links out and summarizes what we've put out that month. Cool. And gives the opportunity for people to respond and be like, what do you want to hear us talk about? And that'll be more, what do you want to hear us talk about will probably be more specific to us, but the podcasts that we're telling people about are going to be, everyone that you're speaking to.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you for another episode of Creatures of Habit podcast. The specific series, how it's really going, is super duper fun. I really do enjoy it, and my co-host here, Jonathan Yarmeisch, is fun to just get to hang with and commiserate on the business with. So if you guys like this podcast, share it with anybody who you think would also appreciate it. Anybody that that likes business, likes entrepreneurship, likes the hustle, likes the startup life, likes the grind, wants to learn and hear about what it's like to be in the trenches, on the ground, getting after it, and dirty fingernails? Come on now. Dirty fingernails, y'all. You got dirty fingernails? No, your shit's clean. Anyway.
Try.
Dirty fingernails. That's going to be the next. That's going to be the.
Just rename the segment.
That's going to be the. That's going to be the name of the show. Actually, Dirty Fingernails. Anyways, you guys know how much I appreciate you. You know how much I love doing this podcast. It would mean the world to me that you share it with friends and family. It would mean the world to me if you took a little time, a minute and a half. Every episode I go up a couple of seconds. So now we're at 90 seconds. Let's make it 98 seconds. You could time it. Write a little review. It could be as easy as, I listened to the Creatures of Habit podcast. That shit was dope. I love the Creatures of Habit podcast. I listen to it on my way to work. Creatures of Habit podcast keeps me stoked while I'm on the treadmill. Anything like that, little, like a sentence and a 5-star review or 5-star rating would really go a long way for the podcast. We're really trying to grow this thing. It's a big part of our brand. It is a way for us to continue to build community and connect with you all. And, I love you. I appreciate you. Until the next one, y'all. Oh, if you're not subscribed to Meal One, now would be the time. Also, it's in the new year. So Meal One Nightcap is a full system. It is a full system of happy, healthy habits. You start your day with Meal One to get that awesome, high-protein packed, super convenient, and delicious meal that takes no time to make. And then you finish your day with Nightcap. You have it about an hour and a half before bed. It tastes like unbelievably delicious Swiss Miss hot chocolate. You can also shake it on ice with a little almond milk. It'll be like the best chocolate milk you've ever had. You finish your day with that. Help you get good, restful, qualitative sleep, get you stress-free before bed so you're feeling a little bit ready to rock and roll. Anyway, I just wanted to put a plug in there for that because this is the Creatures of Habit podcast, and we do have a system for success with our products. Meal One, Nightcap, wake up, wind down, let's fucking go. Love you. Until the next one, y'all. Peace.